Hi, this is Cindy, and you're listening to the Cindy Hales Show. This is episode number 7. In this episode, I talked to Tom Steele. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and runs a school under Marco Terragrossa, Team Yemaso, out in Idaho. We talk about his school, about training. He's been competing a lot over the last couple years. I actually met Tom back when we were blue belts in Seattle. So we talk a little bit about our early days in training, about some of the differences from then and now. And yeah, it's a great conversation. I was really stoked to be able to talk to Tom and catch up with him and hear more about what he's doing. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode and also check back for other episodes at cindyhales.com. And as always, check out my school, Sleeper Jiu-Jitsu. We're located in Linwood, Washington. And once everything clears up and we're back running classes, come check us out. We always have an open mat on Sunday, 11 to 1. And we have gear for sale and other information at sleeperjj.com. Until then, check out this episode with Tom, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's start. Tom, I met you maybe like 20 years ago, right? For Jiu-Jitsu.
2004.
2004.
Yeah, because I started.
16 years ago.
Yeah, because I started jiu-jitsu the year I graduated high school.
Okay, so you're like 17, 18 years old.
It was 18, yeah.
18, and where was that? Where did I meet you? What gym?
So we started training at this. I don't know, was it Taekwondo or karate? But it was in. It was where Rodrigo was teaching in like downtown Renton.
Dude, at
And
Master Nas.
and he was only there for like a little while, I think. It wasn't
Yeah.
like a long. He wasn't there for a long time. Um, yeah, so we started training together there, and I think you were a blue belt at the time.
Okay, yeah. So the early days,
Yeah,
with, I remember that spot in Renton. Uh, I would go there sometimes with Rodrigo, and then one time we went there, and it was just gone. Like it just shut down. Like everything was just gone. So, like we were like, are we at the right like complex? What
that's
is.
interesting.
And then it's like, oh, it was like, yeah, it was Master Nas Taekwondo or something, and it was just like he subletted, and then it was gone.
Yeah, and
So,
I think I probably only trained there like 2 or 3 times, and then I just started training, and then I just started training in Ballard um,
okay.
with Mamazino and Rodrigo, and then yeah, and like you and Joel and stuff. And so yeah, that was. I think I trained a lot. Trained a lot there. Um,
Yep, that was the
yeah.
Ballard Firehouse. And I think it was
Yes.
before it turned into like the fancy restaurant that it is now. It used to
That
have
would have
like
been way
punk rock
before, yeah.
shows.
Yeah. I remember there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember they would have like some rock shows there and stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely wasn't a restaurant then. No, yeah, no. Yeah. So that was back in 2004,
With Mama Zena.
2005. Yep, and Mamazino was there. Um, and then I think I don't know what happened. I think I got hurt or something. Like I think I might have popped a rib, and then I had to take like 2 months off. And then when I came back, um, we were at the Tully's building or the Rainier Brewery like building.
Okay, so then I'd moved to that space, the sharing with Carisco, the Capoeira school.
Yes. And so
Yep.
yeah, and so it was Rodrigo Mosino there
Mm-hmm.
at the Tully's building or whatever. And yeah,
Those
that
were
was
fun days, the Tully's building.
yeah, I always like I have all these like really interesting like stories because like people will like ask me like questions. They're like, well, what about this and this? Like for like so like one, it's kind of gross, but like I look back at those times and like I have fond memories of it. But like I remember we would train in the morning or train in the afternoon, um, and like train hard, and then we would just take our gis off and hang them up outside over like the balcony at Tully's, and then we would come back at night and just throw them right back on. And like, no, like there wasn't like that was not a bad that like that was not a like no one knew any like no one was like that's gross that you shouldn't do that. We were just like no, that's normal.
Oh yeah, there were all
Um,
kinds of things like that. There was rarely soap or toilet paper, and I think about that. Like sometimes there was just like the soap that was really just water in the bottle that was supposed to be for soap, Like and you're just like, I'm just gonna go with it. Like it's okay,
yeah,
and just yeah. Yeah,
I'm trying
that
to
was a
think of.
different standard.
I'm trying to think if I like it more, like now that like my gym, like you have like a clean gym and stuff, and like we're not trying to kill each other, or if I liked it back then. I don't know.
Dude, they have their own special places, I think. Because while I'm like, I don't know if it was the smartest decision back then, there are some like fond memories of the Renegade days, because it was, you know, I tell people sometimes I'm like, well, there weren't really like as many rules, like if it hurt and the person would give up, then that was a move. Like,
Well, yeah, I remember being like a blue belt, and like as a blue belt does, like you just go learn. Well, first of all, there wasn't YouTube, so you only could watch techniques on like these underground like videos that somehow you found on the internet, or like maybe someone had a DVD, like like dengue fever and like submissions 101 and stuff like that. But I remember like learning the twister online, and then like I'm a blue belt, so then I just come in one night and I start twistering white belts. it's like it's like no one's like, if I saw that now, I'd be like, please don't do that. Like
yeah.
I understand it's a good submission,
Yeah.
but please don't. Um, but like that's fine. Like that's no problem. Um,
Totally.
but
Yeah.
like I
Do you
remember
remember Jorge from back in the day? Do you remember that
Jorge.
guy, Jorge? He was the little wrestler. He's very strong.
Oh yeah, yeah, of
Man,
course.
I was talking to
Yeah,
him the other day and just like I think about him and like, dude, he would just like pick you up and slam you and like go as hard as possible. Sometimes they'd like try and running you into the wall and like him and Sean Wilson, like just kind of attacking each other.
yeah.
You
Sean was
know?
a beast too. Yeah, those guys were really good, and yeah, they would dump you on your head if you weren't like ready for it, for sure.
Yeah. Jorge would always tell me, and I joke with him about it. He'd be like, no, no, why are you tapping? I'm not done with my move. And it's like, he'd be like, dude, my head. He would just grab onto your neck, spin it.
Well, but luckily back then I was like 150 pounds, so I could kind of like I sometimes, I don't know, maybe Rodrigo let me avoid those guys where like I could like if they were too big, I'd be like, oh, I'm just a small guy. Can't.
I'm the little young guy.
Yeah, yeah. There was a bunch of people that trained back then that used to just come in and like beat me up, but I loved it. Like I never like got mad. I was never like, oh man, this guy's gonna. I was like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna beat me up. Like this is gonna be good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was like it was a special crew back then. Like there was like so many people coming in and training and kind of like I look back fondly on that space, especially like the Tully's building, and that was a cool time, I think, in Seattle and definitely in jiu-jitsu, still super early.
yeah. There's
Um,
things that I like really liked about the way that we did training, and I don't know if they're like I think back and like, was that good? Was that bad? Like I don't know. Like I don't know if you remember like rounds, like when we sparred the rounds. For the most part, I don't remember. I don't remember if we picked our own partners or if like we would get like partners picked for us. I remember most of the time like I got someone like like they like Kadri was like, oh, you spar with this guy. Um, but then like towards the end when like no one was there, obviously like if there was no one left, like because I always tried to be like the last guy off the mat if I could. Um, so like I would try to like you could pick who's left, right? Basically.
mhm.
But you never knew how long the round was
No, it just
because
sort of
Rodrigo
just
had a
went. Brazilian
stopwatch.
time.
Yeah, he had a stopwatch, and he would like start it right, like with no sound. So he had a stopwatch, and he would start it, and then it would run. And like, but again, like I didn't know anything about a round timer. I was like, well, what's a round timer? Like, and now it seems weird, like because like I have like an iPad on the TV, so like I know how long the rounds are,
Yeah, and you can strategize towards that.
which
Before
I
it
feel
was
like
just
makes it
like,
worse. I feel like that's not a good thing because like if I know the round's 10 minutes, I know that I can't like I know that I have to sort of like pace myself a little bit, depending.
yeah, yeah, I kind of did like that in one way. Yeah, I never fully kind of thought about that. Like, is it better or worse? But it's like you never really knew. It was just like, dude, we're just going. We're still just going. I end up mistakenly having that problem because I have one of the egg timers and it goes
uh,
off and you can't hear it. So it's just like I set it and then it really just goes and then you don't hear it. and then it'll be like 20 minutes later. And I'm like, oh, time. And
Man,
people kind of, yeah, I think, yeah, people don't like it, but I think it might be better.
yeah, I don't know. Really good. Like I think that was like this, like it was such good training, in that environment. Like, I don't know. It was so fun.
Yeah, yeah, that was a great spot back then. So you were you kickboxing too?
So yeah, so I did kickboxing. I started that in high school. And then like I was doing kickboxing and then I was like, well, I want to fight MMA. And I was like, well, you can't fight MMA if you don't know like ground stuff, right? So it's like, okay, well, I'll just go learn jiu-jitsu and I'll kind of do jiu-jitsu part-time and I'll do kickboxing like full-time.
Okay.
Um, but for whatever reason, like I was just way better. Like I took to jiu-jitsu more, right?
Yeah.
And part of that could be like there's like part of that could be like definitely like I think I learned jiu-jitsu pretty fast. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like for whatever reason, like I'm able to like see a technique and I can pretty much do it. Um, and then you just need to drill it to like perfect it or whatever. But yeah, it could have been just because like of the nature of jiu-jitsu, like where you had more people to train with. Whereas like kickboxing, like it's really hard to keep a kickboxing gym open.
Yeah, and yeah, people it's harder to spar, and especially if you're taking the approach of like hard sparring. You can't do
Yeah.
that in kickboxing.
Yeah.
Can't do it long term.
And then like I was doing jiu-jitsu and like I just really like to gi, and I like competing. And then like at some point, like it was really funny, like Rodrigo's like really like he's like a really smart guy. Because he was way ahead of this. He's way ahead of this like thought process. I guess like because this was a long time ago. But he like me and him were talking and he's like, you know, why do you want to do MMA? And I was like, I don't know. And he's kind of just like, well, he basically was like, if you're not, he's like, if you're not going to go to the UFC, don't do it. Like if you're not going to be like, if you're just going to do it like to do it, just to fight, he's kind of just like, what's the point? And I agree with that opinion today. Like when it's like really weird when I see people wanting to do like just amateur fights in MMA. Like I get it. I understand like, and to a certain extent, like I could see like, okay, you want to do one to like prove that your jiu-jitsu works or like, just to like do it, like have the experience. I think I get that. But I think fighting MMA, if you don't want to take it all the way and have that be your career, I think like the risk versus reward is just too high.
For sure. Yeah, that a middle ground on that, like being a journeyman fighter, if you're not all in, I don't think it's a smart
Yeah.
choice for people. I don't think maybe people fully understand like the damage, and especially like younger guys, if people aren't explaining it to them, like, dude, the damage suffered early cumulatively like adds up. And you can say it, but you don't understand it until later.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think people balance that out. That's great advice from Rodrigo, I think early days
Yeah.
on
And
that.
so we had that conversation and like it made sense to me. It was like, okay, so like I could go fight MMA just to fight. Um, and like there was like really good MMA coaches around. Like I think if I would have trained with like Eric and done like a lot of MMA, like I for sure would have had success because he's like a
Mm-hmm.
great coach and he has great fighters. And we talked, like me and him talked too. And I think that was like something I could have done. And I think I could have had like certainly could have had success, like at that level, at whatever level. But like, yeah, I don't think it was in the cards for me like go to the UFC. And so I think I just made a decision to just do jujitsu full time. And I think that like at the time that was like a good decision. I think. So I stopped doing kickboxing. I just started, and I was like pretty much only training in the gi and no gi, and just focusing on like, uh, just focusing on jiu-jitsu. However, like I think we didn't like, so I don't know. Back then, we didn't have, we didn't really develop or discuss like tournament strategy for like the sport of jiu-jitsu. We did jiu-jitsu to like be good at fighting. Is that like, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was to be like rough and like be good at fighting. And like you were fighting MMA and I was training with you all the time. So that was obviously like your goal too. And so I think like that sort of like drove that thought too. And I was training with Joel Townsend as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was constantly fighting MMA. So to like as like that was my training partners, like that was kind of the focus too, right? It's like make sure the
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu is still good for MMA, so like good for fighting, good like good for overall. So we didn't go into tournaments like this is your game plan and this is how you're going to execute at a tournament level, like a sport jiu-jitsu level. Which I
I didn't
think
see most of the people with that sophistication yet.
no,
Do you
no
know what I
one had
mean?
that. No one
I
had that
think
level yet.
Dahlberg was one of the first people that was really like kind of doing that I saw. I didn't really ever do sports before, but it was like he was the first guy really like taking the time to talk about that. Like, here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna game plan this because we would do that with my opponents, and he was the first guy to do that.
Yeah.
But
Like for like no gi and like stuff like that, like ADCC
mm-hmm,
rules and stuff like that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really specific training towards that. I think it was also a function of just like, where do you dedicate the time? I can see it now as a coach, like with Rodrigo, you have one Cindy with a goal, and then you have a gym with a bunch of other people with a different goal. And,
Yeah.
he's trying to just like really understand that big population. And it's hard as, I see that running a gym now. Like, where do you throw the bulk of your energy and your thought? And at that time I don't think people were doing it, and then also just became a time constraint and a sophistication. We didn't have the depth of people back then. It was like, dude, if you were a purple belt, you were a high belt.
Yeah. Yeah.
There wasn't that, like, if you're putting it in that context of like, there were not very many black belts. I remember like the day when I realized, like, dude, I don't know every black belt in the state of Washington, because you used to, right?
Yeah.
Someone mentioned
Yeah.
this guy and was like, oh, I was like, what the fuck do you mean there's a 130-pound black belt in Olympia? I don't know him. What the fuck? And then, because they're like, for a long time, you knew them all.
Yeah.
You knew, there was like five.
Yeah. And well, and too, like we just didn't have that many tournaments either. Like
Mm-mm.
it wasn't like you were competing every month or every week or anything like that.
Dude, in the tournaments, remember some of those tournaments? Were you at the tournament that they threw at All Star Fitness in the aerobics room?
Yeah, I was.
That, it was like the rogue tournament at the health club that, like, we're just gonna have it in the room. Maybe no one will notice, and there'll be like 50 people.
Yeah. But I like it's cool to look back and see like what that was. And then you have to look at like what that's like what those of what all of that has grown into. And it's pretty incredible.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. It spurned, like, it was cool to think back about like being in that first early days when it was just like people trying to like make it happen. I remember like the early on the mat, like you mentioned, the Dunge Fever videos and all of that,
Uh-huh.
like those guys just traveling around in little tournaments, and like you'd get one of those videos, and like, yeah. And then now the sport has really just like flourished.
Yeah, it's almost mainstream, which is interesting. It's really cool. I'm
Yeah,
interested to see it if it can grow into like a sport where like people actually watch. I guess that's probably like an hour long like discussion, but
what are your thoughts on like, what format do you think is
I
the
don't
most
know.
successful?
It's so hard like to get people to watch jujitsu is like I don't know. Like it's one of those things where it's like I think if you don't, I think the only people that want to watch a jiu-jitsu tournament are the people that train jiu-jitsu.
What do you
Or
think
like
about Nogi?
and like getting that people to watch it.
Yeah, do you think the similar,
I think if it's
or
I think it's similar. I think if it's not MMA, it's not like people don't understand it, you know? Like it's
yeah?
the positions are too complex because like that the person just looking on has no idea what the like how difficult like it looks simple, but but if you train, you know that it's super difficult. Like imagine how like every new student you get that comes in, they watch you teaching them like how to do shrimps and how to do reverse shrimps and just simple quote unquote simple movements and they're like yeah I got it, and
Yeah.
then they go to do it and they realize like they have no idea how to move their own body in that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like so they look at something like they look at someone like for example just like getting to single leg X, and like you and I are looking at it and be like oh that was a good like we appreciate the transition from a like just say like an open guard to single leg X, not even the sweep yet. Like I could sit there and study that transition, those transitions all day and like enjoy them for what they are. Whereas the average person, they're probably going to only understand the submission
Yeah. Yeah,
or
and it's a
or
big
a
learning
takedown.
curve if they don't actually study it to understand that nuance of the position and
Yeah,
the game.
it's like how many people watch folk style wrestling?
True.
You know what I mean?
True. Yeah.
Like not that many.
No, it really is a niche sport. It's like the wrestling dudes watch it, and it's like, dude, it's super exciting. But yeah, uh, you know,
But we can get like, but jujitsu has like the potential to have so many more people training. Like the way that we teach and the way that we train, like you don't have to come in and like be a super athlete or get like basically like you don't have to be willing to get hurt if you train correctly.
yeah,
Like eventually, I'd say eventually to get your purple and brown belt, you're probably going to have some injury happen. Probably. Not saying 100%, but like something's going to hurt. But by the time you get your purple belt, I feel like you're okay with that.
yeah. It's one of those kind of like same risk reward, like
Yeah.
a trade off, because um, yeah, that's I think a nice thing about the way that this at least teaching, coaching, gyms have evolved. It's more accessible for more people. Um, and like, I constantly struggle with like, what's the happy middle of that? Not too rough,
Yeah.
not
No.
too soft. Do you know what it's like, I think that, I think there's a pretty wide margin there, and it's really understanding each person. It's like then you need to be very goal oriented for each person, but it's a lot of people management as a coach to truly understand all those limits. Yeah, I'm still learning how to navigate it, but as an overall, uh, having more people in the gym, having more people be able to train safely long term, that's the only clear path to having like jujitsu on TV or what,
Yeah, you have to have a lot of people
the
training.
mainstream of it. It's like, yeah, it's hard though. What do you think about that? Like, I know you like to train hard. Um,
Yeah.
how do you handle that in your gym?
Um, so I think there's two styles of training. And I really like, I attest this all to like Marcos Torgrosa, who's like, so that's my current coach. And that's like who we're affiliated under. And he basically drives the academy, as much as I do. Right. Like
Hmm.
I basically am just like his mouthpiece, which is really good because if someone has a problem, I've literally given my students Marcos's cell phone number. I'm like, well, if you don't like this rule, you can call Marcos.
Dude, the power to have a person like that person in the background, the thing in the background to blame stuff on, dude, that's a good thing to have.
Well, especially as like a newer black belt,
Yeah.
like have like in like you can't question his methods. Like he gets a lot of flack for some of his methods,
Hmm.
but the fact like his track record and like the not just the fact of what he's won, but the way he wins. Um, like you can't question his training methods. You can question whether it's worth it, but you can't question whether or not
It's
this
effective.
it's effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like basically we mirror what his gym does. And so and I feel like this is a good medium, like a happy medium for training style. So what we do is like for the most part, we start class with like a warm up, and then we use the fundamentals class to be like for everyone to train. So the fundamentals class is typically it's an hour long, but like we'll drill a position or like a series of techniques, but we drill them for 2 minutes nonstop, and then you switch 2 minutes nonstop, 2 minutes nonstop, and so it's typically like 8 to 10 rounds per each person. So like 20 rounds. Right? It's like 40
Okay.
minutes. So like by the time of that 40 minutes, it's like 40 minutes of nonstop movement.
Yeah. Good
Which
pacing.
yeah. So if you never trained before and this is your first introduction to jiu-jitsu, like you're gonna come in and you're gonna get like really good workout.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't get hurt because like these transitions, these series are for everybody.
Hmm.
So you shouldn't get hurt. and you get good exercise, right? And like you're building these muscle memories of the positions. So, and then I don't typically let anyone spar unless they have some previous experience or unless they're like really dead set on it. Like if a 20-year-old kid comes in and like he's done some wrestling and he wants to spar, like I'm gonna let him spar. Like I'm not gonna let him spar with another white belt, but like I'll let him spar with some of my blues or purples or something. Like that's not a problem. But if this is like your first, if like you're, let's say you're me, like you're me 3 years ago where you're 30 and you haven't trained in a long time and you're just getting back to it. Like you shouldn't be sparring right off the bat, probably. Like you're going to get hurt. So I don't let anybody spar until they are a 2-stripe white belt.
Okay.
Which that's typically like 4 to 5 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's to say I don't let them spar like full out, like full rounds.
Do little specifics at the end.
Can you hear my kids in the background? Because I can certainly hear them.
They're fine. It's not that
okay.
bad.
Okay.
No, they get to live their lives.
Okay. But so I don't let them spar full rounds. However, like there will be days where I'll let them do positional training. So like starting in half guard, just passing the guard, or starting in closed guard, just passing the guard. And I try to keep those rounds super short. So
yeah, kind of controlled and bumpered within that position.
Yeah. So typically like what I'll do is I'll do 50 seconds in a position. So you do 50 seconds, like you're in half guard top, and then you switch with your partner, and then you're in bottom. And then you have 10, and then the round timer ends and you have to find a new partner.
Okay, the 10-second switch or whatever.
Yeah. And this way I feel like it's a good introduction to sparring. It gets people practicing the moves that they want to practice. And like, so you can't do jiu-jitsu without sparring. I just don't think you can. I mean, maybe you could, but you're not going to progress at that point. But so you have to do something. And then like, I feel like this is the best way to do it because let's say you're 140 pounds and one other student is 250 pounds. To go for a 6 to 10 minute round with them is like almost an impossible task because if you're both new, if you're both experienced, yeah, you'll be fine. Like because the guy who's 250, like he has let his ego go, right? Because like let's say you're 130 pounds and you pass the guy's guard who's 250, and like let's say you submit him, but you're both at the same level. He's going to come back and to want to submit you, right?
Yeah.
Like that's most people.
Yeah.
But if the round is only 50 seconds, at most you probably will pass the guard, and then he'll pass your guard. And even if he's smashing you from like top side control, like because he hasn't learned like please go easy on each other, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that's I feel like that limits the damage potential.
For sure. Yeah, I do a similar thing where it's like it gives you like you only need to last a minute to it's like, and then you get a reset. There's it's just a little bit of anxiety can happen then. And
that's a huge thing too. Is like because most people hurt themselves too. It's not necessarily the other person hurting you. It's like you're hurting yourself. Like you're going to pass the guard and you don't know that your knee is caught.
Yeah.
And so you try to do this crazy move that you didn't learn it that way. But you instinctually think you can move that way.
Yeah. You just spin and
and then you pop your knee and then you look at me and I'm like, dude, why? So I don't know. I try my best to watch people too, and like a hawk and be like, dude, your knee is caught there. Just stop.
Totally.
And that's like, and I think for me too, like I'll do that to myself too. Like if someone has me in a weird spot or like I have them in a weird spot, I feel like too, like you just like people just need to get rid of their own ego too, because like, for example, like you're about to take someone's back and you see that their feet are just messed up and they're going to like hurt themselves. You should just stop them and rather take their back, just stop them and be like, hey, you need to fix your feet. Cause if I do this, like, it's going to be it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
But most people, like, they just want to take the back so bad. They want to submit the person so bad. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Well,
man,
I remember when you came out here and you showed the move, and it was like, dude, help your partner, or else they might break their arm here. And there's those like places where it's like you have to like be like, the danger potential is just fully there. And
yeah,
if the person is not like aware, dude, it can go bad. It doesn't have to go bad. It's very easily correctable, but like if no one is watching, it's like, don't
yeah,
do that. You're gonna blow out your arm.
yeah. One of the things I say all the time is like speed plus strength equals injury.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you can do one or the other. You can do something strong, and you'll probably like the person will be fine. Like if you have them caught in an armbar and you're just using your strength to like if you're just using or maybe like you're caught in an armbar, right? And like you're holding on with like your arm. If you're just using strength, you will be okay. Like
Yeah.
you'll probably be fine. But if you decide to use speed and strength, you're gonna rip your shoulder out. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like those are two. Like if you use both, you will have a bad time.
for sure.
So like that's how typically. So I try to keep everyone safe, and the goal is to learn without getting injured, and like safety is like the number one priority for everyone. Um, However, like my own training, we do that. And then we have like the advanced class, like the intermediate advanced class.
Mhm.
And there, we typically do 10-minute rounds of just sparring. And yeah, like I like to train. I like if I feel like if you're getting ready for a tournament and you're gonna go compete, like you need to be training hard.
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
least,
that's jujitsu. Then it's like the respect of the sport and like
yeah,
meeting it where it needs to be, and like yeah, the think like being like super honest with goals is like important for people. Like, okay, am I here to train hard because we're here to train hard, or are we doing the other thing? There's no like judgment between the two. I think they're like both valuable, but like
yeah,
really knowing what you're doing, what's the goal here?
yeah. And I don't force anybody. Like I'm sure you don't either. Like I don't
Yep,
force anybody to compete or to train. Like
totally.
it's completely voluntary. But if you tell me that you want to compete, and I think that's one of the things I got from Marcos too, is like he has rules where it's like if you want to compete, you have to train at least 3 days a week. I'm sure he makes compromises where people like it's just not possible. Like maybe the person can really only train 2 days a week, but they're putting in work outside the gym, drilling at home or, whatever, getting small sessions in whenever they can, that sort of thing. I'm sure he makes concessions, but for the most part, it's like 3 days a week. And then when you're there, you have to spar for at least 40 minutes.
Okay, yeah, so he has kind of controls on it. I used to do that actually at my old school, especially with the kids. It's like we need to make a commitment here, and
Yeah.
we're gonna like
Yeah.
you're gonna be here for the team's gonna be here for you, and it's just kind of like anything, just like making sure people show up and I think take it seriously.
Yeah. Well, and then too, like, of course, like if someone's injured or something, like we need to make like, if just because if you're hurt, but you want to do a tournament and it's like in a month, like, yeah, we'll try to get you ready without sparring. Like if that's what you need to do. Like I've done
Yeah,
that.
yep. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can make those concessions person by person, but the in general like expectations
Yeah.
of training and everything.
Yeah. So so like if you're not like if it's not like a comp class and you don't want to train hard, like I'll go easy too. Like I don't go hard with everybody, you know.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's really important too. I think it's like I and like it's weird. It's weird like how I pick up it's weird how like every time I train with someone that's like really good or like really smart, like I pick up little things from them where and I remember those for so long. Like so I remember the first time I trained with I think the first time like I sparred with Dahlberg, he was like, "All right, he's like, I'm gonna match your intensity and then I'm gonna go a little bit harder than that, just to FYI." And I was like, okay. And like I didn't think anything of it when he said it, but now like I say that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm just like, so if it's someone, I'm like, just so you know, I'm gonna match your intensity, and then I'm gonna go a little bit harder than that, just
Yeah.
like just so we're aware.
Yeah.
So yeah, I say that a lot too. I'm like, well, talk with your partner and then match their intensity. So
Yeah.
because like I think people just aren't aware of that. Like they aren't aware that if they're training with someone and the person is like, super light and like barely grabbing you, that you shouldn't grab them with a death grip.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. I have little things that I'll do to try and like, I try to use my words. And then I try to do, I try to tell them the same thing, like, dude, I'm gonna go as hard as you go, and then a little bit more. Um, but then I'll try and do stuff where it's like go extra limp for a second so they kind of realize how weird it is when they're grabbing so hard. Do you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
have like
yeah.
little like because you're like, dude, I see it and it's just like, yeah, it's such an interesting phenomena when you're like, slow down. And they're like, I am. You're like, no. That self-regulation it's hard, and it's definitely harder for other people. Some people, it's harder for them. Situationally, it can be harder. I just find it fascinating.
One, it's such a weird. It's sometimes it's a hard thing to like as a coach, as a person who loves jujitsu, as a person who wants to let the world know how good jujitsu is. Sometimes it's hard for me to let my own ego go on that end of it. Like not like person to person. Like if a blue belt's going to spar with a white belt, I have no problem telling that white belt, don't do this, this, and this to this guy,
Hmm.
right? Because like just because they're a blue belt doesn't mean that they're like a world beater, right?
Hmm.
Um, and like if the guy is new, like there's still potential for that blue belt to get really hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if someone comes in if someone comes in and they're doing something to me that I really wish they wouldn't be doing, it's hard for me as a black belt to tell them, hey, don't do this. Like this is just like it's one, it's not effective. One, it kind of is annoying. It kind of hurts, but it's not. It's not like that's like for example, like someone grabbing my head as hard as they can and squeezing.
Yeah.
It's like I want to say, hey, let's not do that, but at the same time, I feel like I owe it to jiu-jitsu to prove that hey, that's not going to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh no, that's like one of the conundrums. Of course. Yeah. I've been in
Yeah.
that position. Well, and it is an ego-based thing. And it's a like sometimes what I say in those situations is like, you can do that, but the longer you do that, when I get out, I'm going to be less happy. Right? Do you know what I mean? Like those metrics are like the more you squeeze, the more annoyed and more I'm going to squish you when I get out. I can
Yeah.
definitely survive this,
Well, and some guys
but
just like it. Some guys just like that. They like squeezing your head, and then they almost like it's like a masochistic thing where they like you. They like that. Oh yeah, squeeze your head, now you're gonna smash me type of thing.
they like to wind you up. My friend was
Yeah.
showing me he has this horse and they like wind it up to like get it all sassy and it gets the crazy eyes. And like when you do that with your dog, get it all fucking like squirrely. It's like, yeah, and that brings me to how I feel about it too, is like oftentimes when I get someone say squeezes my head, then I get wound up and then whatever happens. And then I'm like on the ride home, well, probably I usually am hurt, but in my mind, I'm thinking like, why the fuck did you take the bait? Why
Yeah.
did you
Why
do
did
that
you do
again?
that? Yeah.
And then I always am like, I should have told him like, hey, can you just not do that or just tap? Now I tap more often. I used to not tap to that kind of stuff. I wanted to prove that I was tougher. Now I usually just tap, but I want to be like, dude, that's just not even a real move. But that seems like such a weird thing to say. Kind of
Yeah.
like on the like, grab me like this. I only want you to grab me
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know?
Don't grab my left hand. Grab my right hand.
Yeah, and this way. Only,
Yeah. I feel like the medium for me right now is like I let them kind of do it once, and then I say, okay, so you saw that didn't work. So in the future, just don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I'll like I've had big talks of like, don't grab someone's head, and I think that's important too. Like, I don't think like I think it's important to stop what you're doing and like have discussions with the students too, and like have
Totally.
these long discussions so they understand like where you're coming from and why you're saying the things that you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, um, but I mean, I've also done stuff where like I remember we were rolling like no-gi, and there's these wrestler kids came in. This is at the gym, not my gym, but at the gym I was training at before. These kids came in like they're high school wrestlers, and it's no-gi, and I had one in my guard, and he's like, "We can't slam, can we?" And I looked at him and I was like, "All right, I'll let you slam just me. Only you can slam me. Don't slam anyone else." And so like I let him slam me, and then I just guillotined him super hard over his chin, and he's like, okay. I was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't just not slam anybody, but if you want to. But.
Yeah, you know, because, well, it's that thing where like sometimes that's the best lesson. Do you know what I mean? You need to like try it and get smashed. But I always do I try and use my words first. Like, I do believe that that's like the healthier way to solve it for the long term. Like, you know, I remember in the day, sometimes you would be like watching people like, oh, dude, you just asked that question. You're gonna have a hard day today. You know, you're gonna learn a lesson in maybe not a words way.
Yeah,
So I always try first to like, just as a, I think just as a thing, just try to opt out of that. I don't always know if that's a good way to go, but dude, sometimes in jujitsu, it's the wrestler that wants to slam you. Sometimes that's the easiest way to do it, you
yeah.
know?
Well, then on the opposite end of the spectrum, I do think that like I do think if you're gonna do jujitsu, like you need to know how to be somewhat brutal if you need to.
Hmm.
And I was like, but like I don't know if I know any black belts that like flat out like don't know like they don't know how to be like real like brutal. Like because I was having this discussion about like basically like the effectiveness of like basically like the effectiveness of like sport jujitsu and how it's transformed uh like jujitsu as a whole. And like I don't think it has. Like I think we have these techniques that we know work and are effective for the rule set that we're competing in. But like just because like for example, just because you do worm guard or something, that doesn't mean I don't know how to go to mount and drop elbows on your head.
Totally. Yeah. It doesn't erase the rest of the knowledge base.
Yeah, like it doesn't mean that like I don't know how to put that squeeze on if I need to.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe that's just me. Like maybe that's not everyone.
I don't
I think
know. Yeah.
I've never
Cause
rolled with
you,
a black belt who doesn't know how to do that.
I, I don't know if I can say if I have or not, because sometimes I'm like, well, maybe people are just like being extra pleasant to me.
Well, no,
Do you know
we
what I
should. I
mean?
think no. I
Uh,
mean, obviously, but I think if push came to shove, they know. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. I would
Yeah,
like to hope so. I hope that people do, and that's the signal when it's definitely going wrong, when you are seeing people who just like can't can't get to those basics when they need to. There are like
yeah.
fundamental positions within jiu-jitsu that are, those are always the go-to basics, that hierarchy, mount or
Yeah.
the back.
Well, and like you see, like for example, like you see some of these purple belts today, and like they're doing like crazy things with like the lapels.
Hmm.
But you know what? Those kids are also really good at jujitsu, and like they would smash the average person. So like to say like, oh, like they're doing sports jujitsu, that's not the right way to do it. It's like no, they know. Like they would destroy people like on the street, like if they needed to,
Yeah.
and they would have fun
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're still
Yeah.
killers. Like it's not like they forgot. Like
Yeah. Or they just started with worm guard,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There
yeah.
was a lot before that. They learned everything that like we all learned. And um
Well, that's the thing too. It's like expand your. I think like that's probably like one of like it's like well, that wouldn't work no gi. Well, you're a smart person. You're capable of a lot. You're capable of having a gi game and a no gi game.
yeah. Yeah, you don't have to limit just one. And I think, you know, as people grow in jujitsu, you should be able to, if you have a breadth of knowledge, like make it work. You know,
Yeah,
the transitional game between the two, I think both are important. Um,
but I think there are certain positions where, like that, all that said, I think there are certain positions where are putting yourself, you're putting yourself like in a bad spot where you probably just don't need to be. Like you could come up like there's a lot of positions that I see where it's like just come up on a single leg and finish it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Or like
don't wait
just
for the advantage or
pass the
whatever.
guard, just pass the
Yeah,
guard. Like there's
yeah,
a way to teach them like I feel like there's a way to teach like the new style of jiu-jitsu, quote unquote, with a knowledge of fighting too. You know what I mean? Like a way of
yeah,
protecting yourself and just good solid fundamentals there. Like when you're teaching like a leg drag, for example, like like Marcos when he's teaching leg drag, he's always very good about where he puts his head.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The like the hand control, head
Yeah,
positioning,
yeah,
all of that. Like I think I like. Well, that's one of the reasons I kind of like some of the combat jujitsu, or not even like that is like the the promotion, but the notion of like, can the person like touch your head? You know, like
Yeah.
you know, if you can kind of just like see that, that can indicate a lot. It doesn't mean you need to punch people, but like if someone has that ability to like kind of touch you up, they could punch you. So if you're always kind of thinking of that within any move, you should be able to like seal up some holes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I I love all the game. I know, you know, I'll have arguments with people or like discussions, like old school, new school. It's like I'm excited that the growth is still happening. I'm, you know, I know some old school guys are like, oh, that's worm guard is stupid. You know, you see and it's like, man, I'm excited for all of it. I think there's just so much depth still left to kind of explore within it.
And the brutality can exist in those positions too, which is interesting.
For
Like,
sure.
I
Yeah.
remember it's like Mitch Coates is like really good black belt up here. He's getting law school right now. He's a 3rd-degree black belt. But probably like his jujitsu is like, as far as like someone with like who could teach and do like the fundamentals, but then who's also just a crazy athlete. Like he's probably the best at that level that I've person I've ever met. He is really good at exploiting jujitsu techniques in a way that's like, don't do that because this is going to happen. It's like, I think he saw me doing like a kiss the dragon, and he's like, that's a good technique, but be careful of this. And he came over and he's like, okay, do it to me. And he took my head and just shoved it into my own knee. And I was like, oh. So it's like, so I worked with him to like troubleshoot that and like figure it out. And it was like, oh yeah, like there's a way that you do this technique so that those things don't happen.
Yeah, I like when I find people that explore things in that way. Do you know what I mean? I think Dahlberg was another guy that I saw really initially doing that, and he would kind of like destroy people's moves with that, you know, but it was just like a kind of a systematic, like every move has a flaw.
Yeah.
You just need to systematically dismantle it. There's no perfect move. Do you know what I mean? And like people who spend that time, like, okay, there is a way, and then they're like, show you, like, here's the flaw, and then that just grows the game. You know, I think it's exciting, and being open to having people kind of tell you where your moves suck versus like kind of like being closed to that. That's the way that good jiu-jitsu grows. You know, that's what I try and find. Like I make up moves, and it's like, man, it's hard to go. You take them out, you get crushed with them, and then it's like, okay, go back and refine them, go back and refine them. But it's like, that's kind of the fun process for me. And finding people like, dude, tell me how my move sucks. It's a weird way to kind of think of it, but it's like, dude, it's the way to grow the fastest, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I enjoy all aspects of it, but like, yeah, so I think like as far as like training, like I like thinking about jiu-jitsu in the context of the sport, honestly, because it keeps it fun and it keeps it entertaining. I think if I had to come in and just do like, if I was just thinking about jiu-jitsu for like self-defense, I would get really bored really quick.
It's like, man, I don't like to always just think about people attacking me. I'm a little like anxious enough. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just this mindset that if I like go into that mindset, and then I see sometimes people too deep into that mindset, it's just like I'm like, what are we all afraid of? Do you know what I mean? Like I don't want to be afraid of all those things. So I appreciate kind of the playfulness of sport jiu-jitsu. I don't appreciate sport jiu-jitsu when it's boring and people play advantages. But I appreciate the game of jiu-jitsu and like people like going after it. Do you know what I mean? I wish it's like, dude, I wish they could come up with some rule set, or like people didn't game rules where it's just like really push action.
So hard. It's so hard.
But it's so hard because it's like, dude, when there's money on the line, it's like you want to win. When there's all these things, but it's like, you know, I think the best jiu-jitsu is when you have the person where you go at that heavy pace, you know, but it's like, that's not a constant in like tournaments.
Yeah.
It's like
watching like Nikos, like Nikos Marigali going, right? Like you watch him, he's just constantly trying to attack, but then you could have some other competitors that like they want to win by the advantage.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you know, and a win's a win. I remember, you know, a win is a win, but it's like not all wins are the same. You know,
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
you know.
I really enjoy like theory crafting with my students and helping them like prepare for tournaments and like understand like the game plans and like what you're going to do from this position, like, you know, like understanding like when they're up, when they're down, and you know how they can solve those problems and stuff like that. um
Yeah. Yeah, so you look at that a lot. Let's segue into this. So you're for your work. I want to talk about
yes.
your work.
Okay.
Um, because I feel like you kind of the way that I see you approach jujitsu kind of probably maybe plays a little bit into like your work. You're a computer guy, right? And you wrote a
Yeah,
book. I looked up your
yeah.
book a little bit. I always, dude, I love when people write books for some reason. It just makes me super happy, no matter what the book is about. I'm just like, oh, that person wrote a book. That's so awesome. It's like shows dedication to something to me. Um, tell me about your book. Tell me about your job and your company and all of that.
Okay, so yeah, so I work for a company called Tretis Partners. um it's like I think we're up to like 26 people,
Uh-huh.
but they're all way smarter than me. um, but so my technical position is research consulting director, which is like it's just a fancy way to say that like we hack things every day, all day, right? So what we do is like a company or a business, you know, they have an application or they have a car or they have um, you know, something, they have something that has some sort of attack surface to like in regards to like computers, right? And so we basically go through and identify and exploit that attack surface. um, and then of course like document like what we did and how we did it, right? um, and so basically we're just kind of like hackers for hire type of thing, right? We're more sophisticated than that, obviously, and we're very professional about how we go approach things and things like this, but that's what we do like all day every day. um, so yeah, that's what I've been doing for like past 10, 11 years.
How did you
um,
get into that?
so I was training jujitsu, and I needed like a better job because my job, I was working at like Fry's or something.
I
And
think I remember that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was working like Fry's. And then yeah, I started like well, then I had like an issue with my eyes, right? So like because I originally was going to try to do like be like a police officer, because I figured like, oh, I like fighting, I like tackling people, like maybe this is
Mm-hmm.
fun. But I had the issue with my eyes, and so I couldn't like I do not have 20/20 vision corrected, so like I can't do that. But I was like, well, I've always liked computers and things like this, so let me go. It's like I went to school and took some classes at like Green River and was like working towards like my like associate's degree and that sort of thing. And then I got a job with from some of the jiu-jitsu guys. They got me a job at like entry level, basically like looking at blinky lights at night and then calling people when they were blinky.
Did you worked with Nate?
Yeah, yeah. So I got like Nate and Brendan got me the first job.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, it was like look at these blinky lights. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But you were there all night and you didn't really have to do much. So I would just kind of sit. I would just bring books like for certifications and like different things and just kind of like read those all night and then see what I could do on the network there and like identify problems. And like I think I was there eventually. And I just started like I was reading a bunch of security books and like hacking books, and I just started identifying all these problems on the network. And so I would email the security team, and I think I just emailed them enough. They were like, "Why don't you just come work here and you can try to fix some of these things?" um, and then I worked. I was on that team for like a year, and then I basically moved. I moved to another company called Motricity, who was in Bellevue. I was there for about a year there, doing more like offensive style testing, where I'm like actually trying to attack stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got my first job in consulting, and from there it's been like just like 8 years. It's like just nonstop, learning and like purely offensive, like operations and things like that. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like all on the job and then like self-study, self-learning type of thing. And for me, yeah, it's like a lot like jujitsu. Like there's an endless realm of tactics and techniques to learn and like understand, and you can go any route you want. And you can go down all these specific rabbit holes, and you're never going to learn it all. Right. And then the more you like, it's the thing is, the more you drill it, the more tactile, like the more muscle memory you learn, the faster you can do it, and the faster you can understand these things. And so, yeah, like for me, like hacking and things like that, it hits all the same parts of my brain that jiu-jitsu does. It's just the added benefit of jiu-jitsu is you get the physical component, so you like stay in shape.
Yeah, you get to do it kind of real world physicality, but
yeah,
dude,
but it's just like a competitive puzzle to me, you know? And so I feel like that's just the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, that's really awesome. I knew a little bit, like I would hear like things like, did you know Tommy is doing this? I think like Griff would like kind of,
Oh
because
yeah.
he was sort of a computer guy.
Yeah.
I'm just
yeah.
I'm always fascinated by people who just like go and teach themselves like things and become experts, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm just, and like, dude, well, you were that kid in jujitsu. I remember like you were kind of like one of the upstarts, right? Like kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, damn it, there's Tommy. Tommy's coming up. We were all like, you know, and then like you had your eye stuff, and then it was like Tommy kind of disappeared. And then next thing I hear is like, dude, Tommy's doing all this crazy shit, So
Yeah. It went from
yeah,
one obsession to the other, basically.
yeah, you just swapped them out. When you couldn't do one
Yeah.
thing, you did the
Yeah.
next thing. So yeah, and then you turned it into a career, which I think is great. I had my jujitsu obsession. Like I became completely obsessed with jujitsu for many years.
Uh-huh.
Then I became pretty obsessed with like teaching. Now I'm obsessed with like, I really want to be a business black belt. I feel like
Yeah.
maybe I'm like a business blue belt,
It's
right?
hard stuff to learn.
I
Yeah.
awarded myself. I was like, told my partner, I was like, man, can I have one of the coffee cups? Because I feel like I'm gonna like award myself. Like people get like a gold watch. I'm on the
Yes.
coffee cup level right now. When I opened my gym finally, it's like, I've been like spending really like 2 years, like just like Cindy. I never thought about like business really. I thought about
Mm-hmm.
jujitsu. I thought about like the minimal amount of business to do jujitsu as a business, but now it's
Yeah.
like there's the same techniques that you can use in business, like just like you talked about in hacking. The more you do certain techniques, the more you have processes for like how you're going to do things, systems, strategies. All those things exist in business too, that I never really like. I think I just had such an aversion for some reason to business, and now I'm like, dude, it's like a little puzzle. There's little puzzles and games within different realms of business, and then the overall game of business, Dude, yeah, it's been pretty exciting. So yeah, that's part of my podcast. Like I want to talk to all these people that have like reinvented themselves multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, it was a process. I mean, obviously, like having to leave jujitsu as abruptly as I did. Could I have done like I could have like that's another podcast too. Like I could have done things so much differently than I did, but I did it the way I did it. And really, like I think when you're first learning something, it really is hard to do. It's just like everyone else. Like it's just like everyone else who learns something and does it quickly and does it well. Like you kind of have to be soul focused,
Mm-hmm.
and that's you have to be obsessed. Like, like I got started. Like I went from I went from like not knowing really a lot about like computers to like being a consultant in like a very short amount of time. And that's because like that's what I did for like, and my wife could probably attest to this too. She just drive her nuts. But like I would wake up and I would only like I'd probably dink around in video games every now and then, right? But like or do something. But like I would be my sole focus was to get as good as possible and learn as much as possible for the entire day. And it would be like 16 hours, like nonstop, just like constantly reading, constantly learning, constantly doing something. So like I would go work, and then that's what I was doing in my like that my job was my hobby, right?
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, like that was good because it launched me into a very successful career very quickly. However, sacrifices were made. Like
Oh, for sure. I bet.
I went from 150 pounds to 250 pounds, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no time. There's time, but I didn't make the time because I was so like, that was my sole obsession, right? So anything that was not related to getting as good as possible, like, for example, like, computer stuff, programming, whatever, was out the window. But I made that sacrifice for better or for worse, and it turned out, I think it worked out well in the end. But yeah, like I sacrificed a lot of family time, a lot of just a lot of my free time in that 7 years kind of just went where it went. Now I had a lot of fun too, because I've always worked with like awesome people. And so like we were always having fun, and like it's a fun job. Like you're breaking into places, and you're doing things that are pretty much like they're illegal. Like they're legal in that you have a contract that you can do them, but like you're doing illegal activities, right? Like
if they weren't paying you to do it, it would be illegal.
Yeah, it's like it's fun. Like it's real fun. Like it's just like when you're going to a bank in like Kansas, right? And you are dressed up as a bank employee and breaking into the bank like during broad daylight and getting into vaults. Like it doesn't get any more fun than that. Like those projects are few and far between, but like those are like, that is amazing. Like that's super fun, right? So I want to say like it was terrible, but I certainly sacrificed like my health and my and sort of, and to a certain extent, like my mental health as well. Like I got super burnt out like 2 years ago. No, like actually like 3 years ago. And that's why I started training jiu-jitsu again.
Okay, so that was a little bit of the impetus. Like you redlined it in one direction.
Yeah, I redlined it super hard, and then I was like, man, I gotta do something. And so like I started actually like, so I moved to Idaho. Everyone in Idaho hunts. And so I was like, well, I'll go hunting. Sure. It's like I started hunting, but like hunting's really hard, like physical hard. So like I had to get in shape to start doing it. So like we started hunting. I lost like a lot of weight just hunting. And then I was like, well, I'm losing weight. I feel good. I should start doing jiu-jitsu again. And like I only wanted, it's like I actually tried to do judo. Like I tried to go to some judo schools, but like judo hasn't changed, and it's strictly geared towards kids, because like no one can do judo as an adult without like injuring themselves super bad.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Well, and all the guys that did judo growing up, they're all injured. Like if you did it for a long time, they're all like super injured, right? And they don't want to do like they don't want to spar and stuff like that. I get that. So it's all geared towards kids. So I tried to do judo because I figured like, well, there's less risk to my eyes if I just do judo, right? Because like no one can grab my head. Then I was like, well, I'll do jiu-jitsu, and I'll just drill. Like I'll just drill techniques. And like that'll be fun. Like I'll just drill. I can just do the classes. Maybe I'll spar light or something like that. And that'll be cool. And then like I can teach my kids, like, because I really wanted my kids to learn jiu-jitsu, but I felt weird teaching them jiu-jitsu as a purple belt who hasn't trained in 9 years or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then like pretty much like my first, like this, I think it was like the 3rd week back. The guy I was training with, from Ben Butters, like a really great guy, awesome school in Boise. If anyone's ever there and wants to train, doesn't want to come to my school, then go train with him. He's like a great guy. He was like, yeah, just train 3 days a week. And I was like, okay, if I train 3 days a week for like the first 3 weeks, and then I think I was there like every other day. I was there every day.
Yeah.
I was training like every day, right? Like just obsessed and sparring.
Right back to normal, Tommy.
Yeah, sparring full out and like going hard, and like it was like, okay, well, and eventually I just kind of was like, well, getting in shape and having this in my life is like, if my eyes go bad and like get worse, I'd rather have that. Like I'll just accept it. I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I remember when you first started coming back, I think you like hit me up and was like, dude, are you training or whatever? And it's I was like, oh shit, Tom Steele's back. He's coming back. Yeah. So I think that's really awesome. So you started training, and then, man, a couple of years progressed, and now you have your own school.
Yeah. So I was a purple belt, 250 pounds, and I lost that weight like really fast, actually. Like it was just like riding a bike. Like it came right back to me. Like I was super out of like the jiu-jitsu had obviously progressed.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a bunch of techniques that I wasn't like familiar with, and a bunch of like stuff that I wasn't familiar with, but like the techniques I knew still worked, right?
Yeah.
But like I came back and started teaching classes like 6 months later, and started competing. And then I got my brown belt, got my black belt, met Marcos as a black belt, or no, sorry, met Marcos as a purple belt. And that was like a huge impact on me. He came here for a seminar when I was a purple, and like just had like me and him have very similar mindsets about something, which is like, if you're going to do something, you should just do it the best way. There's no sense doing it the wrong way. Just do it the best way. He's obviously like, he's probably much more, he's much better at staying on task and like driven than I am. But like, he's taught me a lot about that. And for like, that's that mindset for sure as well. But yeah, immediately it was like, this is someone that I want to learn from. Like, I feel like he has like, not only do I feel like he's probably like one of the best people at teaching jiu-jitsu in the world, like he's just also like super like open about like teaching and giving, like he gives to everybody. Like, and I think that's a lot of people, but like him, like, you know, him being like a 9-time world champion or whatever, like he didn't have to take the time on like an out of shape purple belt to like, you know, hit me up on social media and ask me like how my jiu-jitsu is going and stuff like that. Right. But like he does that with everybody.
Totally. Yeah, I know he's like liked stuff on mine. Like once I met you, like kind of reconnected with you, started kind of following
Yeah.
him. Like, yeah, he's dude, he's a awesome competitor, super intense personality, you know, but it seems like, yeah, he's open and out there. And, you know, I like that about jujitsu in general. And I think a lot of things in life, like you find those people that it's like, dude, yeah, total experts, but you can like access them and talk to them and they're open to like share what they know. And so, yeah, that's really cool that you found him.
Well, and
And
he doesn't let you dismiss anything. Like I feel like if you're really good at something and someone says like, I want to be good, you're like, okay, cool. And then like, you know, you might ask them a question about technique and they will let you sort of like, they will let you let yourself down. Like if you're not doing it perfect, they'll be like, well, that was good enough. Like, but you're just a beginner. So like come back next time and, you know, you'll progress.
yeah,
Marcos won't do that. Like,
doesn't accept like, okay, it's
yeah,
like,
like
no,
I've
I'm going
done,
to be there for you to get it right.
yeah, like we've done privates together. Like before I was affiliated with him, like, so when I was a purple and brown, I would take like frequent trips down to Sacramento to train with him. And like, we would do privates and like, I would have like 1,000 questions for him, but like oftentimes we wouldn't get past like the 5th one because I was just screwing that 5th one up constantly. Right. So like
It's got to be refreshing too, I would think, for him to find someone like you, because as a coach, what I notice, and I've been torn with this, and I remember used to have discussions with Rodrigo about it, that like, do I stay and try and make this person get it perfect, or do I move on and allow that? Do you know what I mean? And that's like, that's another thing I battle with, and I don't always even know what the right answer is because I like often want to make it perfect. Be with the person and make it perfect, you know? And I think like I've had students and I've had moments and I've had training opportunities where that was the goal and it was very, very rewarding. But I also have had situations where it's like, Cindy, you're freaking fucking people out because they're not engaging with it that way. You know. But so I imagine it's very rewarding for Marcos and probably for you as well to have someone match that. Do you know what I mean? When you have that person that wants to give that, and then the person who's open to receive, that's like great things happen in those environments or relationships.
Yeah, and like to just have someone like, you know, to have someone like him open up his gym to me was I'm like no, I'm not anybody. Like I'm not like, I wasn't a good training partner for him at purple and brown, you know, like guy destroys me. Like what does he have to gain from it? You know what I mean? And so so like I took like all these trips down to Sac to train with him. And then I basically like, so I live in a town called Star. And the gym I was training at, again, really great gym run by great people. Like I have nothing bad to say about any of those guys. So I was training in Star, and then I was driving about 45 minutes to train in Boise.
Okay.
And then training and then driving home. And oftentimes I'd train twice a day. So I'd drive down there in the afternoon, train in the afternoon, and then work from there, and then train at night and then drive back. And I was doing that with basically the knowledge of like, this isn't sustainable. Like this is another
Yeah.
obsession that isn't sustainable, but it's worth it if the goal is to do whatever, right? So I basically did that until I was like, okay, it's like I want to train with Marcos more, and I want to open my own gym so that I don't have to drive so far,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so yeah, so like I decided to not I decided to leave that gym and not be affiliated because I wanted to be affiliated with Marcos. So like there was no bad blood. It was just like, well, I want to train with Marcos more, and this is the best way for me to do that. So this makes the most sense. And so like there's no bad blood or anything like that. But that's how the gym got started. Is so now the gym's in Star. It's about 10 minutes from my house. And then me and Marcos own that together, and he's here. Well, before this, like the virus stuff, he's here every month to come train with us, and we talk all the time and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really awesome. What's the name of your gym for everybody?
So it's West Idaho BJJ. That's like the name of the website, westidahobjj.com. But like colloquially, we just call it Yemaso, Idaho, which is like that's Marcos's affiliation, right? So
Yeah.
Yemaso, Idaho would be like the name. But yeah, it's crazy. It's been like 3 years. Like it's been 3 years this month. It's coming back to jiu-jitsu. So yeah, so to go from, like I went from like out of shape purple belt to I don't know, like, I think I'm in kind of okay shape now. The virus have put on some pounds, but
Dude, we all have.
yeah, to go to black belt has been kind of a fast ride, but it's been fun.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
now you're back and you competed some last year?
I competed a ton last year. Yeah, like so I got my brown belt, and then I didn't register it with the IBJJF
Okay.
because like I didn't know to do that.
Yeah.
And then I registered it right before I got my black belt. And
How'd that
so,
go?
well, so I was able to, I was only able to compete once at brown, and then I had to wait a year at black before I could compete because there's the time minimums, right?
That's what I
So
was
I had,
wondering. Yeah.
so last summer, American Nationals last year was like when I was eligible as a black belt to compete. And so I competed at that, and then I did I did all like so many opens. I did Master Worlds. I did the U.S. Open. Basically, I did like every tournament I could last summer and fall, and then yeah, we were getting ready to come back for Pan Am's, and then it got canceled on us. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And
which
then all
Pan
this
Am's looked
craziness happened.
awesome. Pan Am's, we were like, I signed up. I signed up like way long ago, and then I start like the division started filling up, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be crazy. Like because like Lovato Jr. signed up in my division, and Lucas Rocha signed up, and I was like, oh man, like this is going to be like for sure. I wouldn't beat those guys, but that's the people. Those are the people that you want to fight. Like you want to feel what the best is like, so you know where to go.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like you can't go wrong. Who cares if you lose to the guys and like the opportunity to compete with like all the best. It's like I really love that about jiu-jitsu tournaments. It's like once you're in black belt, it's like there's no easy matches. It's like you're gonna get to like maybe train with the best people in the world. It's exciting.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about black belt too. Like that's the cool thing about it. That's this maybe some people would think that's like the depressing thing about it, but like for example, like I know so like as I've come back, like I've gotten a chance to roll with some like really good guys. So like I know what the skill gap is like between me and like Marcos.
Yeah.
Like I know the skill gap, what that is like, and like I talk with him all the time, like how am I gonna catch you? Like not just you, like how am I gonna catch, like for example, like how am I gonna catch these guys that like have been training? They've been black belts for like 20 years,
Yeah.
and
Where's the
he's helped
back
me.
door? Yeah,
Yeah, he's
where's the
helped me.
little secret?
Yeah, like he's helped me like kind of think through some of that stuff where it's like basically like you're not gonna get as good as them at overall jiu-jitsu. So what you have to do is like you have to game plan, and you have to try to get good at like certain positions.
Yeah.
And you have to outwork them to a certain degree. You have to hope that like they're not working as hard as you. But like people like Lucas Rocha and Rafa Lovato, like you're not like I'm not outworking them, right? So like those are just like world-class guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like
Yeah, and you can see how close can you get to them, and there's always chance to get there, but just to be able, I think, to compete with the best of the best. Most sports you don't get to go in and it's like, dude, you can pay your $100 and fucking have a run at it. I remember
you're not gonna
like
play one-on-one with LeBron James at
no.
Vegas.
Yeah, I know when I got to compete like against Megumi Fuji, fight her, it was like, dude, I watched her on TV, on YouTube or whatever, and it's like my idol. Like just to even get to go do it was like pretty special. Um, Now it's funny, I'm like, someone was like, yeah, I'll go, and it's like I'm kind of the old person and old like the for girls,
Well,
more
you
of
are. I
like
mean, like you are one
I am
of
the
you are
old
the top. You are
person.
the top person. You are the person I think like that they want to roll with. You are that.
I've
You're
had
like,
people tell me that, and it's like a
yeah,
weird thing because I don't see that in like I that's not the frame I look at me from, but it's like I've gone to like Master Worlds, and it's like, oh, I'm the three stripe old school lady, and then there's like the brand new black belt, and it's like kind of seeing that and like talking to some of the girls that are like in that early era. Yeah, it's cool. Like for girls, it's coming up. Girls are starting to get more opportunities too, more black belts. I remember one of my first IBJF tournaments, Pan Am's, it was purple through black, two weight divisions for girls. And that was like
yeah.
a big tournament. And it was like now there's a pretty stacked divisions for girls. And yeah, the kids are scaring me now. Like you see like, dude, the Rotolos, and
Oh
like you
yeah,
see
yeah.
there's going to be those guys coming out, and just like you don't even have to be that. I have that one kid, and you see all these kids that are coming up lifelong jujitsu guys. You started at 18, now there's kids starting at like 4.
7, 5, yeah,
Yeah,
4.
it's crazy.
Well, dang, I guess I didn't realize how long we went.
Dude, let me let you
I,
go. You got
I
work
gotta
to do.
run. Yeah, I gotta
Okay,
run.
Tommy.
I would love to keep talking.
Well,
We'll
I'll
have to
have
do.
you back on.
We can do a version. We can do like a continuation. We can do like the second one.
We can do a post coronavirus.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Thanks for talking to me, and I'll tell you when this is out, okay?
Okay, you made it through episode number 7, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Tom and learning a little bit more about his jiu-jitsu journey and the other things that he does in his life. If you want to hear more episodes, check cindyhales.com. I have some more interesting guests coming up, some jiu-jitsu people. I also have a guy who's a walking enthusiast and a graffiti artist, so I'm really excited to share him with you guys. I think you guys will like it. And so check back cindyhales.com. Also check Sleeper Jiu-Jitsu to come and train once everything open backs up. Until then, have a great day and thanks for listening.